Welcome. And we'll start, of course, with our bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
And I'll move right into the screen share. And we are talking, of course, about the special instructions regarding various offerings. And moving through the various types of offerings and special instructions involving them. So let's make sure I've got the place. Yes. So we were talking here. Let me make sure. I believe we were talking about the chatat offering, the sin offering. And we're talking about various elements of it that yesterday that we did. About how the parts needed to be treated, etc., etc., and that then here we go. Okay, I want to make sure. Did we may have done this? Let's make sure. No. Okay, so kol zachar b'kohanim yochalota. All males among the priests shall eat it. Kodesh kodashim. Who we did the verse. Maybe we didn't get to do the Rashi. On the other hand, if for some reason I misplaced this, but I think this is correct because I don't remember the Rashi that we did. Kol zachar b'kohanim yochalata. All.
Yeah, we did
yes.
do the Rashi, but that's okay. We can.
Did we? Because I know there was something else that we had a different issue about kohanim with blemishes. Okay, kol zachar b'kohanim yochalota, shall eat it. Halamadata shehamechate ota. Yes, we did this. Hamur lamala lo. Okay, yeah.
Well, please go on because the person who wasn't there yesterday sure appreciates.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so it doesn't hurt to go over it. Halamadata, the fact that it says all male priests should eat it, in other words, it says halamadata, so you learn from this. Shamachate ota ha'amur lamala. Okay, we did make mention of this. That is to say, the one who actually does the chatat, right? The one who actually performs the service of this offering that is mentioned above. Lo lohotzi she'ar hakohanim. In other words, it isn't to exclude other priests. It doesn't come. This statement doesn't come to exclude other priests. Ela lohotzi et she'no ra'oi lechitui. But it's only to eliminate from the ones who can eat it, ones who are not fit to actually sprinkle the blood to actually perform the sin offering. Okay, so and I think when it says, it means someone who maybe was in it could refer to a halal, that is the offspring of a priest or a priest who had married someone whom he was not allowed to marry as a priest, in his status as a priest. It could also possibly mean someone who was impure at the time when this offering was brought, and so he would not have been able to bring this. And so as far as this particular thing, so there's a few different ways in which one can go at this particular verse. Let's go on. So, v'chol chatat asher yuva midama el ohel moed. We did not do this for sure, and I think we didn't do 22. We had done something that was similar to it with regards to a mincha offering, possibly, in terms of other priests being able to share in it. I remember a more extensive Rashi that we did on that. Okay. V'chol chatat asher yuva midama el ohel moed, and any chatat, any sin offering, whose blood is brought into the tent of meeting, lechaper bakodesh, to atone in the sanctuary. Lo te'achel, that shall not be eaten. Ba'esh tisaref, in this it shall be burnt off in fire. So just this, I can clarify what we're talking about. When an individual brought a sin offering, as an atonement for something they had inadvertently, a sin they had inadvertently committed. Part of that went to the priest. Part of the food of it went to the priest. The Torah in the book of Vayikra, or rather in the Parsha of Vayikra, details various levels. It starts off with a high priest, that if the high priest commits a sin, or if the Sanhedrin is next, commits a sin, or if the king commits a sin. In these particular cases, the blood of the sin offering is brought into the sanctuary, and I believe it is sprinkled on the altar, the gold altar. That's where the blood is sprinkled. Whereas in the case of the individuals elsewhere, it's sprinkled simply on the altar. Outside, the bronze altar outside. And that's the distinction this verse is making. Because if the blood is to be brought, in other words, if it's a circumstance where the blood of a chatat is brought into the sanctuary itself, none of the chatat is consumed by anyone else. No, not by priests. Chatat were never consumed by the ba'alim, that is the owner of the animal. That it did not go to them. It was a sin offering. There was an offering, I think I mentioned this yesterday, that was called a shlamim, peace offering, if you want to translate it that way. Or and the reason, we obviously the word shalom is associated with it. And shalom has to do with wholeness, W-H-O-L-E, because part of it went on the altar, part of it went to the priest, and part of it went to the owner and his family. So all of it was shared. It was a shared offering, specific, and that was essentially a thanksgiving offering going on. Now we go on to something else. Vezot Torat Hasham, and this is the instruction regarding the guilt offering. Now, an asham was related to a chatat. Okay. However, it appears, as I recollect, from the Parsha of Vayikra, which introduces the asham following the chatat and discusses the circumstances by which one would bring a guilt offering. So the specific circumstances, I am not sure. Forgive me. There are times, many times, sadly, where my ignorance or my forgetfulness becomes publicly displayed. But I know that there's a circumstance where you would bring an offering if you felt that you had committed some kind of sin, but didn't know what the sin was. Now, but you nevertheless wanted to show God that you were truly repentant for what you had done, and you wanted to do it in a way that was, as you can see, significant, recognizing that your life in some sense was forfeit for the sin that you had committed, and you wanted to be able to atone for it. I think that might have also been called an asham. All right. And it's possibly called an asham talui, meaning a dependent asham, meaning that it's suspended asham, meaning we don't know specifically. You're supposed to actually mention what it is that you're seeking atonement for when you bring the sacrifice, the specific sin that you committed. You're supposed to confess it, and then, of course, gain atonement. And here we're talking about something where you know you did something wrong, but you're not sure exactly what it was. So, as you stand back and examine this material, you realize that I've mentioned this before, of course, that it's a certain level of sensitivity of our role as human beings. So we'll go on with this. The instruction. V'zot Torat Hasham Kodesh Kodashim Hu. It is of utmost sanctity. Right. So here we go. Rashi explaining, what do we mean when we say Kodesh Kodashim, that it's of utmost sanctity? And this is in a tractate called Tmura. The word Tmura means replacement, something like that. And there was an issue of, and the Torah mentions this, that if you designate an animal for a sacrifice, and then you change your mind and want to bring a different animal as a sacrifice, essentially you can't do that. Once you've basically made a commitment, in other words, it's a binding obligation to bring a sacrifice. If you decide to bring another one, then you have to bring both. Okay, you can't just bring one. There may be some circumstances where you might be able to and be permitted to replace one animal for another. Maybe in the case, I mean, I have not studied the tractate Tmurah, and if my display of ignorance to you is helpful to you just to get a sense of how much information there really is out there and the degree of encyclopedic knowledge that is required, then at least I'm doing something useful here. At any rate, he's referring to this particular page 18 in Tractate Tmurah, and Torat Kohanim, also in the Sufra. So, okay. Now this is interesting because he says, Hu karev ve'ent murato kreva. So he says that if you decide, see that they're talking about a tmurah, right? They're talking about an animal that you want to replace the asham with. And he's saying the initial animal that you have now designated as a asham is the one that needs to be offered. And it's saying, and you cannot substitute it. The substitute animal is not going to be offered up. Now, it could be that the Tmurah no longer is an animal that you can now treat as a regular animal of yours because you've also committed it. But nevertheless, it's not brought on the altar, appears to be what Rashi is saying here. Okay, by saying it is sanctified. And remember, I explained that the word to sanctify something has the sense of designated, special, sui generis, that kind of thing. Treated in a unique kind of way. Unique, this is some of the meanings of the word kodesh, right? Okay. It goes on to say, so that's one halacha. Bimkom asher yishchatu et ha'olah, in the place where they slaughter the olah. Yishchatu et ha'asham, they should slaughter the asham, the guilt offering. We'll translate it as that. Going on. The et damo, and its blood, yizrok al hamizbeach saviv, and he should cast the blood around the altar. And I did double check, and I'm pretty sure now that we are talking about the northwest and southeast corners of the altar, that he dashes the blood against those corners, and then consequently it goes on all four sides of the altar with those two applications of the blood. Let's see what Rashi there is on here. Okay. Yishchatu, they shall slaughter. Riva lanu, he says he includes, riva means some kind of inclusion. He includes for us shchitot harbe. He says many kinds of slaughterings. So we'll have to see exactly what he's trying to say here. Let's keep going. Lefi shematzinu. Why? Because we find asham batzibur. We find that when an asham batzibur, I would say this is a public asham, ne'emar yishchatu rabim. It sounds like this is meaning, it says they should yishchatu, that's a plural, utalo ba'olah, and he makes it dependent on an olah, lahavi olat tzibur latzafon, to include the fact that the public olah, so for example, the tamid of the morning was an olah tamid, the offering that was brought in the morning, the lamb that was brought in the morning was brought daily, and would have represented a public offering. We know that there were also individual olot. Latzafon, it needs to be slaughtered in the north, on the north side of the altar. Okay, so I think, okay, So what Rashi is concerned with is the fact that it says yishchatu, that it's they should slaughter it, right? And it's not, I mean, you don't have a lot of people slaughtering at the same time. You only have one person who's slaughtering it. So I think Rashi, what's concerning Rashi here is the plural of this word. It doesn't say yishchat et ha'olam. That would be the singular. He should slaughter the asham. And he's saying, why does the Torah use the plural here? And the fact that it's plural, he is saying, is to come to tell us that we're talking about public ashamot as well. And also the fact that it talks about the olah is to just link all of these things together as to where they are supposed to be slaughtered. And I think this is, we will have to stop here. Let me mark it here as to where we are. Okay. And we will, now tomorrow I will not be able to meet. But please God, we will meet, well, Thursday, yes. We should be able to meet Thursday morning. It's a little more complicated because Thursday morning is Purim itself. And I was going to be in the sanctuary to do that, but I will try and figure out some way to meet at 7:30 regardless. And also just know that tomorrow actually is a fast day. It's the fast of Esther. If this is something you would like to observe, that's the case. So let me stop the share and stop the recording.